We're live.
We are live.
Let's stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people. And as per usual, please check out our agenda and our minutes on our website for our meetings, and join us in ways, finding new ways to support Indigenous communities. We have a few suggested links to get you started. Reach out with more ideas. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey.
And these are challenging times. I think a lot of us are feeling somewhat shaken up. I'm going to suggest that we consider taking a moment of silence to reflect on the activities of our Supreme Court. I find it's we're supposed to have this federal government with a system of checks and balances, and it doesn't feel well checked right now. And I think we're headed down a particularly frightening path. We're elected officials. I'm comfortable with using this bully pulpit to say that I'm disappointed, and I think women's reproductive rights matter an enormous amount. And as I said, I'm nervous about the path that we're headed down. It feels really divisive and scary. So take a second. Okay, for this village board agenda, I have item number 6 to add to the consent agenda. This has to do with a Tractor Supply credit card that our superintendent of public works and Nick Coddington from our Department of Public Works, they will be the only individuals permitted to use this. It's just because Tractor Supply will only take credit cards as opposed to POs. And also to add to tonight's agenda, during the business agenda, we're going to add item number 8. It's a bills and claims resolution. Motion to move both agendas as amended.
Okay.
All in favor?
I'm
I'm going to take this moment to share any announcements with the public from board members.
okay. We have a very major special election coming up in our district. It's on August 23rd. It's for everyone who's a voter. So I wanted to let everyone know that there is a deadline to make sure you are registered to vote at your current address to be able to vote in that election. It's for our congressional seat for the remaining couple months of the term. So you have until July 29th to register to vote, to be eligible to vote in that election. And then I did want to just share again some resources with everyone. Never use a loan hotline. It's always available. The text or call 800-484-3731. And here in Ulster County, you can get access to Narcan, fentanyl test strips, and other harm reduction services anywhere in Ulster, delivered to you, meet up, etc., by texting or calling 914-610-5324. If you're hungry, don't worry, head over to the free food fridge every day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. They're at 25 Claddick Avenue. There's some do's and do nots for donations and whatnot on the fridge itself, but also more information on how you can help keep this fridge fully stocked in the pantry as well at millionsofbutterflies.org/free-food-fridge. And just a general reminder to not self-evict.
Okay, and I want to let people know who might not know this, that there's now COVID-19 testing at the town community center. It says that it's not that, there's no out-of-pocket expense for it. I hope that means that it works for folks who don't have health insurance as well, but I haven't checked into that. In any case, it started already. It's Mondays and Thursdays. 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and appointments are encouraged, but walk-ins are welcome. So if you have any questions or concerns, take a look at the Town of New Paltz website and put in COVID testing and it'll pop up.
The PCR arrangement.
That is PCR, because antigens are mostly what people do at home alone. Thank
Any-
you for the clarification.
Any other announcements? Anything to share with the public from our village board? Nope. Okay, let's, public hearing. Is anyone here from the public interested in making a comment on any topic?
Tim, you've here.
Dave?
Hi. I didn't get on the agenda, so I'll just do two
No,
quick
this is
ones.
perfect. Yeah, this
Public
is
hearing.
perfect. So your public comment will be your update as a legislator. Thanks
Exactly.
for chiming in. Awesome.
Sure. So, Tim was at our Ways and Means meeting last night, but I'll just say that there is a resolution right now that we'll be voting on to put some of the excess sales tax that was collected in 2021 back to the municipalities. So New Paltz will be getting some of that money. There was a little bit of concern over the timing of it, but it sounds pretty clear from yesterday that the intention was that that distribution should happen just shortly after we approve it. I don't think anyone I feel confident that it's going to pass. So that's great news. The other thing was just to remind Tim that we need to have a conversation, or for you to have it with your board on where you are with the idea of the county collecting for foreclosed properties. There's a proposal to have a new arrangement with just the 3 villages. And I think New Paltz is in a slightly different circumstance than Saugerties and Ellenville. And so I kind of need to know how to best represent.
Yep, and I sorry, Eve, so I'm just going to respond to that quickly. So I responded to the email inquiry I received this afternoon explaining that we did not have outstanding bills from village property taxpayers, and we aggressively chase down unpaid bills each year, and then the handful that get left over, those are sold via a sales tax certificate process each spring. So we don't have a pile of unpaid sales tax bills.
Right.
And I
so
shared
the
them,
question is-
and I asked Nancy to confirm that was indeed correct. But I relayed that message to the staff from the Ways and Means Committee.
Right. But I guess the other part is do you want to keep doing it this way? Or would you be interested in this new model? Does this new model suit New Paltz at all? Or is it not really, does it cause more complications? Are you happy how it is?
I think that's a really good question, and that's something that we will chew on with our treasurer, Nancy Bronco.
Great, great. So yeah, just if you let me know about that. And I don't.
Can I also,
Yeah.
so your first topic, I wanted to publicly thank you because, that is definitely a topic that you have, as our county representative, have tried to get others interested in. And it felt encouraging that there were more than a small number of voices at that Ways and Means Committee who seemed to be in supportive of this new resolution. But I just want to recognize that, it's definitely a topic that you've tried to pound the table about before just recently. So thanks for continuing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I had tried to carry this resolution a couple of years ago and I couldn't get a co-signer. And so fortunately it came out of the executive's office. So it made it. And I think, Tim, I'll send the kudos back to you of really that message I said to you that, the supervisors and the mayors have to avidly tell their legislators that this is a good thing. And I think that happened because I could hear from many of the legislators that they definitely heard from their supervisors. So that was definitely a big difference than when I'm running around and nobody will sign with me.
Yep,
So-
yeah, we worked well together as an association, and you encouraged us to speak as a group, and then in addition, this draft resolution, we looked at it carefully, and we're looking forward to the updated, edited version, based on the conversation that occurred last night at the Ways and Means Committee meeting.
Yeah, that's good. As soon as I get it, I mean, I'm sure they'll give it to Quickly also, but as soon as I get a draft, I'll forward it over to you.
Great.
And I think that's it, unless there's any questions for me.
No, we don't have any other questions, but yeah, thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Greatly
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Any other public comments? So we don't have a public hearing. Wrong. I used the wrong phrase earlier. I was only looking for public comments on any topic. Motion to move the consent agenda as amended. All in favor? Aye. Business agenda item number 1, climate equity justice related. Does anyone want to walk through?
Donna has some things to share.
I do. So, last night, we were given, a racial equity report training. And by we, I mean, folks who are in the Democratic Party, but it was offered to people who weren't, members of the party as well. So I attended for us, and, it was based on this racial equity report that was done by the controller, Mark Gallagher. And it was fascinating. So she and a few other people walked us through the whole report. And when it was over, after they had gone into it, I asked, what steps do you think that we, as a small local government, can take to help us move in the right direction? And they gave us a few suggestions. So I'm here to share that. They suggested we do an internal inventory of staff and leadership and share that. That we talk about procurement, are we doing business with BIPOC businesses, women-owned businesses? They suggested that sometimes if we're doing like a request for proposals or something, perhaps smaller businesses can partner together to get work with local government. That so that it's not just bigger businesses, but startups and smaller businesses can sometimes, if we can help encourage them finding ways to get work with local government, that can help them. So lack of data is a huge problem. So they asked us to make sure we're keeping data and finding ways to partner and hire and encourage diversity in like all the ways. So by keeping data such as, an inventory of our staff and leadership and sharing that out and making efforts to procure things through small businesses, BIPOC and women-owned businesses, that's really helpful. Another thing that I think we all can do that they said to us is to challenge and question societal constructs, right? So like, this falls back to some of the data, getting the data together and seeing what that says about how we're working, and finding ways again to help foster businesses that are BIPOC owned and women owned, and think about when we're passing legislation here, when we're doing our work, perhaps there are ways that we don't recognize our biases. So like, trying to take a deeper dive and look at that. And I think the last two things, one is really the most important, which is listening to BIPOC folks, to elevate and amplify their voices and believe them when they're saying things, and not just say, oh, I don't think that's racist. I think that's just because whatever, like hear them, sit with your discomfort and really try to, amplify their voices, think about how what we do as a village might be affecting people in ways that were unintended. And the last thing is to divest. So look at who we do business with, and if we know that any of those places are not equitable and or believe in uplifting the voices that we need to hear more from, that we should look at perhaps finding other ways to spend our money.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank
Terry, do you want to come pull a chair up and chat with us? You're going to provide us with an up.
Terry, you can use that chair at that end.
Okay.
It'll be on camera.
Sorry about the
That's all right.
So Terry's the chair of our Affordable Housing Board, and the members of that board did a great deal of work recently. So Terry was going to take a moment to tell us what was involved and just provide us with a general update. Maybe even some suggestions on tweaks we could make to improve the process moving forward. I'm sure it was a
Thank
steep learning curve.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for having me. Let me start by acknowledging the members of the board. Suzanne is here. Suzanne, if I mispronounce these names, I really do apologize. Suzanne Began is here. John Geralak, oh boy, Geralico. Those are the two active members plus myself. And then there was one member who chose not to continue to serve this spring, Debbie Cooney. Debbie had been on that board since the board was founded back in 2015. And I want to acknowledge her. I mean, she really hung in there for a long period of time, and she was very, very beneficial to all of us as we began jumping right in to try and implement the ordinance as the zero place development was coming online. The ordinance, in my opinion, worked as all of you intended it. I don't know that all of you authored it, but certainly it is your ordinance. And it did, in my opinion, exactly what you all hoped it would do. It provided the incentive to the developer to offer these affordable units. For that, they got a benefit. And it offered 5 families in New Paltz. Now, some will say, well, it's only 5. Well, for those 5 families, it could be life-changing. And I don't say that lightly. It's not every day that people who with modest means are able to move into a brand new, beautiful new apartment under a 2-year firm lease. And who knows? Maybe their life changes and they can move along. Maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, they can stay. So it really did change the lives of 5 families. So yes, it did exactly what you thought it would do. Did it do it well? It could probably do it better. And you're right, Mayor. I think the board and I will spend the next couple of months taking a look at pieces of that ordinance, and working with Michelle, we'll bring that back to you. We're not. I have no intention of bringing something in here some evening and say, here it is. We're going to work with you before we do that, because there's some things that'll make it a little bit more efficient for the developer. It'll make it more efficient, I think, for the village. And let me just stop there and acknowledge and thank the village clerk's office, specifically Nicole McLean. You're absolutely right, Mayor. We kind of jumped into this thing with very, very little institutional knowledge, very little history of how it was done in the past, because it had only been done once in the past. And that was back in 2015, 2016. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. That's the way it works in some organizations. People who've been there leave. They don't leave an elaborate procedures manual. I understand that. But believe me, the village clerk's office, and Nicole in particular, I cannot thank her enough. She was really, really stepped up And the village clerk's office as a whole, I think, found out that there's more to this than even they realized. So I understood that as well, but let's acknowledge it and thank Nicole profusely. She really did a great job. You know, one of the things of this ordinance, we've had our county legislature on this morning. I've heard this afternoon, I've heard all of you talk about, read about the cooperation between the town and the village. One interesting piece of this ordinance is, if you live in the town and you are of modest means, you're eligible under our ordinance to get an affordable unit. I would, at this point, I would publicly recommend, I would a little go maybe even further than that. I would ask the town to consider passing a very similar ordinance, perhaps an identical ordinance, so that they could create affordable units in the town and allow village residents to apply.
They've been considering it for several years.
And that's great.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
It's hard to get projects across finish line sometimes, but it's absolutely on their radar.
That's great. And it is hard. I mean, I understand that affordable housing has a special place in local government. I understand that completely. And I'm glad to hear they're working on it. Anything that I can do to help them, I certainly will. I think I can speak for our members. We'll help them. If they would like our thoughts, we'd offer it to them.
Thank you so much.
And then, and let me just sum this thing up by saying the changes I think that we're looking at, you know, some may be a lot more complex than others. It'll take us a while as a board to come to some agreement on that. But I would hope by the end of the year, we could bring something back to you so that we can move ahead. And I want to thank you for allowing me to come tonight. Thank you for all that you do. And Suzanne, thank you for being here. And I can take questions if that's appropriate. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you've all done. Again, thank you. Thanks to John and Debbie for all the work, because I know from being on those emails and the emergency meetings that you've had to have and, you know, figure out what works best for all of you. You've all come together to make those meetings happen. And Nicole also, for that, has been amazing. So thanks for all that work and getting folks proud.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely. It's huge, you know, it's a lot of work, and as someone who has volunteered on other boards, I know that, and then you guys volunteering to do this for your neighbors is really beautiful, and we really appreciate it.
And hopefully there'll be some additional affordable housing stock for you to, you know, do the process again and find some units for qualifying individuals. And we're also super excited to hear about your suggestions in terms of, you know, how the code is currently written and how it could be streamlined or made more clear. That's very welcome.
On that note, you're needing a new member. So let's publicly say if anyone listening would like to join these folks, we'd love
Yes.
to hear from them. And yeah, I know, Suzanne, you came to us through some online posting, so we can put another post out and see if we can get more interest and if you know anybody too.
Yes, we only have 3 members of a 5-member board. So again, I have to acknowledge, you know, my colleagues, you know, if one of them couldn't make it, we couldn't meet. That never happened, not once. And you're right, there were a lot of special meetings. There was a lot of them.
Good. Thanks again, and thanks for the report, Terry.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Suzanne.
Thank you.
You mind if I leave?
No?
You're okay?
You can leave at 9:30.
Yeah, okay. You can stay if you want, or, okay, good. Thank you all.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
So on that volunteer board note, our village board has been trying to think of a way that we could do a better job of recognizing the work that volunteers do on the Affordable Housing Board and several of our other boards. So we have a sample of certificates. We also had a questionnaire. We thought it might be useful to actually gather input from our volunteers. Maybe that will help in terms of how to attract additional volunteers. And then another project that we've been working on is to expand our volunteer base so that we would have flexibility to appoint some individuals who are outside the village to different village, but they have to reside in the town of New Paltz. To appoint individuals to our different boards and commissions. So really those three things. Does anyone want to share any thoughts about those particular agenda items?
Yeah, so I put together the two different samples of certificates and just Autumn and I talked about it. We both were leaning towards the first one. It felt I liked what Autumn said. It felt very New Paltz. And of course, the wording could be changed about if we feel, it could specifically say for the Affordable Housing Board. And, should we move with this, I think it would be great to take a look at the folks who have moved on from serving this year and work on getting these out to those folks. It's a small token, but it's also, comes with a lot of heart. So I think this would be a good thing for us to get out to those folks.
I really appreciate the work you put in. I think this was a really lovely thing to do for our volunteers. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo that, that gratitude. And I spent last week in a class about citizen assemblies, not the same thing as a volunteer board, but very similar, foundation of like little D democracy. And like one thing, like these folks from like all over the world were stressing about how those panels of, citizen assemblies that deliberate important ideas, just like our Affordable Housing Board folks and stuff do, is making sure that the people in the room feel appreciated, however you possibly can, and in the village of New Paltz, a certificate of appreciation is a big step in the right direction. It's not like, you can't get, I don't know, we can't like feed everyone, but we can at least show some love. So thank you so much for thinking about that and taking this initiative.
Yeah, and I think too, everyone's on, most of us are on social media. So it's something we can also post there and just continue to bestow our gratitude upon those who have done so much work for us and for our village. So it's another, and in turn, that's a good way. So say, Debbie has moved on from the Affordable Housing Board and we would like to present one of these to her, and then we can post it, and then that opens the door and lets people know, oh, there's an opening now on the Affordable Housing Board.
It's a great way to get recognition of what's needed.
Yeah. And like you said, Alex, I mean, knowing gratitude is so important, and to express that to those who have volunteered is so important. So,
And I love that we've packaged under this volunteer boards title this questionnaire. I think Autumn, you worked on this probably with assistance from some others, but and I think several of us at this point as village board members have completed the questionnaire. What I really like about it is it feels like it has a decent length to it, but it is not too long. Questionnaires that go on for too long drive me bananas. So I feel like, we're collecting useful information, even information where we could maybe even make improvements. It's like it gives our volunteers an opportunity to say how they're feeling about something where they might not ordinarily use time to say, this is how I feel about this. This is what I like about serving, or this is what is frustrating about serving. And that's basically what the questionnaire tries to identify. And then there's even a question that says, hey, can we share your comments publicly or not? So you can do it anonymously, or you can say, yeah, feel free to share my thoughts with the community. So I thought it really hit the mark in terms of gathering some information that could be useful.
Mhm. And I'd really appreciate the third thing, the fact that we're trying to open up the pool of volunteers a little bit. And just to be clear for anybody who has not heard us talk about this before, this will allow town residents to serve on village boards, but we're still going to maintain a majority of those on each board will be village residents.
Right. And, I appreciated what Terry said, and that he felt it's actually very nice from a community perspective that individuals who live outside of the village could qualify for, for affordable housing units. Like I wholeheartedly believe that whether you live in the village or in the town outside the village, like we're all a shared community, and it just feels like it's a very natural thing that if someone lived outside the village, they would absolutely, be the type of individual that we would want serving in a volunteer capacity on one of our boards or commissions. So I'm very excited about this resolution. So with that, my motion is to move the resolution.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. The next item is a resolution regarding sales tax sharing. So the way it currently works in New Paltz is sales tax that's distributed per the agreement that's determined by Ulster County and the city of Kingston. The villages could receive their share based on the value of property within the village directly, or it could just go to the town. So we've been in an unusual situation. There are only 3 villages in Ulster County: Ellenville, Saugerties, New Paltz, and both Ellenville and Saugerties receive their share of sales tax directly. So this resolution would update how sales tax is distributed, so that starting in 2022, the village would receive its share based on property values directly. So my motion is to move that resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the next item is an IMA with the town of Rosendale. This is for highway services. This is just a re-up of an agreement that we've had in the past. I mean, it's common for municipalities to try to work together and share services or share tools or help each other during emergencies. And this just memorializes that relationship that we have with Rosendale. Motion to move this IMA. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then the next item has to do with the project where the village is providing the gator and water that the town is using with their contractor to water the flower baskets on Main Street. So this is just making sure that that everything is dotted as far as I's and crossed as far as T's in terms of that arrangement. Motion to move that IMA. So this includes also adequate insurance, since the contractor employed by the town would be using village equipment. All in favor?
Aye.
And the next up is, there wasn't a resolution written, but there's a bill that's been passed by the town, by the Assembly and the Senate in Albany. It's sitting on Governor Hochul's desk, and that would allow municipalities to lower their municipality-wide speed limit to 25 miles per hour. The challenge that we have in the village of New Paltz is that our roads that are of significance include Main Street and 32 north and south and 208 south. So those are state roads. So unless the local DOT office agrees to also lower the speed limit within our community to mirror what we want to do, assuming that the governor signs that bill, I think it would be very confusing for our community, where we would have village-wide speed limit. And I believe the town probably wants to do exactly the same thing. They would like to lower the speed limit from 30 to 25, but they would probably be in the same situation where the state roads that traverse the town, unless the local DOT agreed, they would not be lowered. So this is basically a resolution just encouraging Governor Hochul to sign the bill, and then formally asking our regional New York State DOT office to lower its speed limit if the governor goes ahead and signs the bill. I've already emailed our contact at DOT to find out exactly who we would make that request to, and I've already put it on their radar. So that's my motion to create a resolution that includes this language. Does anyone want to second it for further discussion?
I'll second it.
Second.
Oh,
I'd
Michelle
like-
seconded it.
I'd like to add South Chestnut to the list. Or I remember in, I think it was 2018, 19, we put together that pledge to drive 25 to try to encourage our community to drive 25. We all challenged each other to do 25, particularly on Main Street, just to see how it feels. And you're not getting anywhere exponentially faster, and you are making everything safer. So I'd also perhaps like to dig up those pledge things
Oh, okay. Great.
and just to further
That's a good
support.
idea. There might be language in there that we could bake into this resolution if you want to find that.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't include South Chestnut or even South Manheim is I just quickly did this, and I said New York State highways like Main
I
Street and
figured,
North
yeah.
Chestnut.
I just wanted to put it that
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
for our
absolutely.
road.
Yeah, any of the highways that traverse the village.
Any and all.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we maintain any of the state roads for the village DPW?
No, we're not allowed to.
So, but we can, and maybe we need to budget for changing out the signs that are on existing side streets. Like I know, by code, there's 2 streets that are already 25 miles per hour. I think is it Oakwood? Yeah, one other street, which is already 25, or Manheim. So can we replace signs, say, a Prospect or where we have signage already?
Right, we would definitely need stuff like that.
Okay, well, let's see how that goes.
We have to see if it's doable first, and then we'll do
No,
signage.
I think we could do the village road, but we can't touch the state road. So my
Right,
question is, should we budget for the buying of new 25-mile-per-hour signs to replace the ones that exist in village and village roads?
I think based on the conversation I had with him about this the other day, like, I think it might be premature until we get some idea from the DOT from the state, because we'd rather it be like village-wide.
So go
Because the
wide
way-
rather than.
Well, because the way the law has been, it's been, you can do it at the beginning and end of any street. But if we could just do village-wide, it would be more cost-effective.
Right.
But the likelihood of the state approving that is pretty slim. So
Well, then we won't do it, and we'll.
I think we
Well-
should make a proposal, but it seems slim. that-
No. My point is, if the DOT is like, no, we're not lowering speed limits on Main Street,
Right.
then I think it would be silly and confusing for us to lower, silly, confusing, and expensive
Yeah,
to pay for those signs.
right.
Like, it really only makes sense if we
If we get,
have a uniform application.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any other municipalities we can team up with in the same DOT region
That's a
and
great
do
idea.
like a collaborative letter,
That is a
just
good
a
idea.
one more
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
of pressure. Yeah, I'll map out well, I can't even talk anymore. It's a long day. I'll map out which other municipalities share the same DOT region. Yeah,
Probably
and
pretty big.
yeah, no, ours is definitely really big. Because I remember when I was assistant, like, I helped with one of our many pleas to have any crosswalks on Main Street, and they were like, nope.
Oh, we just got an updated letter
Oh.
from the DOT where we were asking for some assistance. This is a commonly brought to our attention issue in New Paltz. And you bring it up, people have already complained about it, or they're already familiar with why it's very problematic. So when you're heading west on Main Street and you see a pedestrian and you stop because you don't want to hit the pedestrian, or maybe you have to make a left-hand turn onto Oakwood. So this is at the intersection of Main and Oakwood. So cars will unfortunately often go around because they think maybe you're making a left or they did not see the pedestrian. So if there was some sort of different design at the intersection, potentially a bump out for pedestrians, it might be a lot safer. And we sent, one of our notes, as we do on a regular basis, to the New York State DOT's office, and their response was, that seems like an enforcement issue. You should make sure that those vehicles don't make that potentially tragic mistake, instead of getting any assistance in terms of how streets are designed.
Incredibly
Big
frustrating.
bummer, yeah.
I just read something that said narrow streets are safer for pedestrians. And those bump outs would certainly create a more narrow roadway. And shout out to our core downtown, which is quite narrow. But yeah.
And also has some crosswalks.
Yeah, that's a common issue I've seen us run into with DOT, where they are like, their ideas kind of are like, how can you go faster and more dangerously? We're like, no. So yeah, I'll make that list. So I think I have it on my desktop already. And we can work on putting pressure on them.
Or reaching out
Right.
to those municipalities so that
Oh,
if they
no,
agree
yeah.
with us, then we can lobby
Oh,
together.
yeah. We'll all put pressure on DOT together. Yeah.
And since we're discussing vehicle and pedestrian safety, I can share that we had a very useful and informative conversation with a wheelchair-bound individual who lives in our community. And Autumn and I learned a ton about this phrase cross slope in terms of how driveways and curb cuts work. And it's kind of how we approach the conversation with our friend Vincent, where we said, show us stuff that we would not, that we might not ordinarily be aware of because we're able-bodied individuals and that you would find difficult. And it was really interesting. And they showed us this cross slope phenomenon and examples of where it works well and where it's dangerous and where it misses the mark.
When you say cross slope phenomenon, can you just give us an idea of what that is?
Yeah, so now you're going to look at every single driveway.
Yeah.
So it's basically just like if you're on a sidewalk, you have to have a slope of a certain grade
Okay.
before it flattens, and then it really matters in terms of like the grade height of the road versus inside the driveway, and it's just like approaching it from a few different angles really matters.
Yeah, sure.
And you can see when it's done well, you're like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. That is designed intentionally. And then you could see, driveways that were constructed a long time ago where the only design feature that anyone thought about was whether the car could get in or not.
Mhm.
So that was eye-opening and useful.
I hope we'll be able to go forward with that information and try to make our streets and sidewalks more accessible and
Well-
easier for folks who are differently able.
We met with Corey to go over, how site plan currently works with
Mhm.
driveways and where we could include language that might help this with new projects
Great.
or properties where there's a material change to require this type of update if it doesn't currently exist
Well, I'm
to
glad to hear that.
help the differently abled folks. Okay, so that's it in terms of well, we are meeting on Friday with the DOT and the DEC to talk about that issue that we have where we're under a consent order because we have I&I problems, and we would greatly appreciate if the DOT helped us with that by repairing or replacing or cleaning out a stormwater drain that runs across North Oakwood that everyone's super familiar with because the puddle is enormous and you get splashed and the cars drive through and then
You
make,
mean North Chestnut? Or you said North
yeah,
Oakwood?
what did I say? Oakwood. Yeah, I meant to say North Chestnut,
Yeah.
diagonally across the street from Family of New Paltz.
Right.
So we're gonna see if they would take a look at that. And, the thinking is, we have these state agencies that have different responsibilities. Like it would make sense if
We could all
they were
agree
on the same page, like we're under a consent order, but we need the DOT to help us by making that capital improvement.
I'm gonna try and make it to that meeting.
Cool. Okay, motion to move agenda item number 8, the resolution regarding bills and claims 5C.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Planning board liaison update?
wait, the
There are two
regular,
building claims things on there.
Oh, is there a second one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and then item number 9, motion to move that resolution.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
PB liaison update?
Yes. Village Planning Board met last week. Once again, our planning board members deserve every bit of accolade we could give them. It was a 3-hour meeting covering 9 different applications. Highlights included Woodland Pond was still applying for their new cottage on their property. The easement, rather the buffer zone, was discussed again. The lemon squeeze, formerly known as Murphy's, is still being reviewed. There was an issue when it came to whether or not the landscape architect could, rather the architect could sign for the landscape architect, and that's not the case. They actually need to have an architect sign off on that on the plan. A very interesting proposal from Wendy Toman, the woman who runs our paint shop upstairs. She's proposing to put into the Zero Place building a refillery, which is a new term I've not heard before, which is where she's proposing to sell bulk items. Where you bring your own containers, your 1-gallon jug, your big, you'll have a glass container, and you refill with soaps to produce, rather cold cereals, household items in bulk form. This will help reduce the amount of plastic waste that goes into our system.
Very excited about that.
That's very interesting.
Oh, can I just interrupt you for 2 seconds? Not
Sure.
only does she run the paint swap, but we also have recycling upstairs for all kinds of things like pens and
Right.
personal care products like packaging from toothpaste and deodorant and stuff. So check that out.
Yeah, I think that's called the TerraCycle program.
Right,
Yeah.
right, your plastic shavers.
Yeah,
and whatnot, your toothpaste containers. So that's essentially what happened during that meeting. The county planning board reviewed only one item. And I'm surprised that it went before the county planning board. It was rebuilding of a pre-existing non-conforming wall. But that was passed. There's no county impact on that.
Where was that?
That was on, 5 Fidekill?
Yep, that was on the ZBA
Yeah,
agenda last night, and they didn't do anything because they're waiting for,
yeah, and that, no county impact on it, but I'm surprised that it actually went to county for that. But,
yeah.
The other more significant discussion, I presented the Ulster County COVID Commemoration Commission's plans to build a COVID commemoration somewhere in the county.
Hmm.
We've been meeting for the last couple of months. I'm on the location committee and the narrative committee, looking for a site in Ulster County to put this this tribute to those who worked during COVID. First responders are essential workers, or nurses, or doctors, teachers, educators. So we put out a call to the Ulster County Planning Board to help locate a site suitable. We're looking for a quiet location, location that where someone can go and reflect some of the elements we're looking for: woods or meadow, a stream or a lake, someplace where people can reflect upon what happened during COVID and still is happening. So if any members of the board or the public would like to suggest location here in New Paltz, town of New Paltz, anywhere in the county, it has to be accessible. It can be a destination that's accessible. We did talk about a location along one of the rail trails, and a series of tributes along rail trails, but the feeling is we should have just perhaps one centralized commemoration.
Now, would that be a installation that the county maintains, or is
Yes,
it?
the county would maintain,
Oh, okay.
county would pay for its construction. We're moving forward with RFP to artists, which will go out to local artists and to schools. We're trying to determine what the budget is. We're still working that out. But we have a pretty aggressive timetable that the RFP goes out in September, with locations to be announced about that time, and construction begin early next year. So by springtime, early summer, if all goes well, we'll have this wonderful place to visit. Pay our respects to those we've lost, and to all the people who worked so diligently throughout the COVID.
That's a really,
And continue to do so.
that's a really beautiful thing, and I don't know, as a nurse, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific idea. We've got about 12 or 15 members of the community. The county participating. It's a good group, led by Laura Nordstrom.
Well, thank you very much. It's a beautiful idea.
DBA liaison update. They met last night.
They did. They set a public hearing for August 9th at 7 p.m. for an area variance for 184 Main Street. So if folks aren't sure where that is, that was Moxie Cupcake. What's being proposed is a small hotel with 12 hotel rooms, a 3-story building with a restaurant, and so a roof deck and a front cafe area as well. And what they're looking for from the ZBA is 5 feet of relief from their 10-foot rear yard setback. So if anybody has thoughts or feelings on that particular variance, they should show up on August 9th or write to the ZBA before then. And that was it. Other things got postponed because we're waiting to hear from the Ulster County Planning Board, or we're waiting for other actions than that decision.
All right. Our plan now is to go into exec for the purpose of discussing potential litigation. And then we're going to come out of that meeting and not take any action. So if folks want to take off, or we could probably just shut down the cameras now. There's no point in having cameras just look at a empty table. But the meeting will not end right now, but after we come out of exec.
So you're moving to go into executive session.
Yeah, motion to go into exec. Does someone want a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Um,